Welcome to Story Chats at Inspy Romance. I'm Elizabeth Madry, and I'm here with my two co-hosts.
I'm Narelle Atkins.
I'm Valerie Comer.
Today we are chatting about CCR set in the northeastern part of the United States. And I'm calling it northeastern because I'm including New York in our conversation as an option. And in Googling various regional breakdowns of the United States, New York doesn't always get put into New England, or only part of it does. And I'm like, you know what? It's going in. So it's New England / the Northeast. And we're going to be starting, this is sort of kicking off a regional breakdown of the United States CCR novels. So we're doing,
which will be really interesting and challenging for Narelle, the Australian, and me, the Canadian. However, we're up for it.
It's challenging for me too to find books that, because I don't, unless it has a lot to do with the state, I don't necessarily always remember that, oh, hey, this book is set in Kansas or whatever, you know, like I don't know. So, but I thought it might be fun. I see sometimes people asking for reading challenges or whatever. I need a book that's set in New England or whatever. So I will put all of these in their own playlist on the YouTube channel. And then if people want to look for them by region, they can. So trying to help people out.
Look at you.
Sounds fun.
So for our purposes, we're saying Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, and New York. So our first question is, how impossible was it to look for books this way for you, Narelle?
I was actually okay. So I challenged myself to only have one book set in New York City and to pick a book that neither of you guys picked that's set in New York City. So hopefully I achieved that. But I could have added a few more. I don't know. I really like that part of the world. Okay. I didn't actually end up, I looked at Nantucket. I could have gone to, but I've particularly Courtney Welsh's books in Nantucket, but I didn't add those on my list because we've talked about them before. I didn't want to take away something you guys might have gone to. Yeah, so I have a couple that are set outside of New York City, but I could have done probably 10, to be honest.
I think we could do a whole episode on New York City without any trouble.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have 6 books on my list. Oh, 5, pardon me. And none of them are set in New York City because I knew you guys would. So we're always, people always second guessing what each other's going to bring. And we don't always talk about it. Usually don't talk about it. Yeah. Anyway, I found it was hard because New York was easy. But I'm like, okay, if I'm going to have more than one book, and I am, then I was trying to pick like each from different states. Okay. That was my goal. And it was hard, but I kind of cheated.
Surprise.
I went to a Christian fiction readers group on Facebook and gave the list of states and said, what contemporary romance have you read set here? And of course, somebody gave me a historical set in Washington State, and etc. But most of the suggestions were pretty good and helpful, and I kind of picked through them, and some of them I could have probably enjoyed reading several more, but I didn't have time. So, but that was how I found the books, because so many times you don't have, it doesn't say in the blurb necessarily where it's set either.
Yeah, I creeped on that Facebook post a little and snagged. I mined the comments there myself because I don't have any in New York because I was like, I don't want to deal with New York because I figured everybody would. So now only Narelle.
No, nobody is.
So that means that when we get to the end of this regional series, we need to actually do a series on New York, because the book I've got is probably, 8-9 years old. Okay. So we've completely ignored New York. Poor New York.
Oops. So, but it was hard. And I'm already looking, we're doing Mid-Atlantic next. And I'm already sort of giving those states the side eye. Like, I don't. So Virginia's easy. Like, just go read my books.
That's what I put in my notes. I'm like, Elizabeth in brackets.
Yes. And then Heather Gray next.
Yeah.
As I'm
Exactly right.
yeah.
Anyway, this week.
Yeah. All right. So is there, I mean, I said mine. Sometimes for book challenges, people want a specific region. Is there another situation that you would think of that would make you decide, oh, I feel like reading a book set in Connecticut or whatever? Would you do
I think
that?
if I were planning to go there on a vacation, I think that would be a reason I would do it.
That is.
And, different places, different states or different areas are known for certain things. So if you're looking for, I don't know, a beach feel, obviously, you're not going to be reading books set in Kansas. I don't know why we're picking on Kansas today.
Poor Kansas.
Poor Kansas. But if you're looking for like a mega city vibe, well, then New York's going to be one that you're going to be looking for. If you're looking for, old American money and rich vacationers, well, Cape Cod, so I can kind of see that if there's certain types of books that you really like, that you would gravitate to certain settings as well.
For sure. Narelle, anything to add?
Well, sometimes if I watch a movie set in a particular place and it's a place I'm not familiar with, I'll go looking for books because I'm just curious. The movie has piqued my curiosity in terms of something that's unique about it. So if I want to go somewhere that's eating lobster and seafood, then the Northeast is quite a good bet if I'm in America.
Yep.
Because lobster seems to be a very big feature of the Northeast.
Yeah.
Is there more lobster
that's what
available
they fish
there
it.
than anywhere else?
I think it's the only place they fish it is
in the
is
Pacific
in-
Northwest,
right.
it's all about crab.
Yeah.
Crab
Yeah.
and salmon, I would say.
Yeah,
Pacific
but as
Northwest,
far as
but
the
New
seafood,
England
yeah.
is lobster for sure. Yeah, that is like
Yes.
lobster town.
And that's why I want to visit. I love lobster. So that would be a reason for me to go there, would be to have
it's still
the
not
fresh
cheap,
lobster.
but it's fresh.
It's
By the
fresh.
time you have flown in from Australia, it doesn't matter the price of dinner.
That's true for sure. All right, so we're gonna dive into books. Valerie, you want to tell us your first one first?
Sure. My first one is The Billionaire's Secret by Meghann Whistler. And it is set partly in Massachusetts and mostly in Vermont. So it definitely ticks two boxes here. Ryan and Zara, the main characters, are both from Boston and meet at a retreat center in Vermont. He's a billionaire whose friends force him to go to the retreat center while he grapples with the diagnosis of a rare disease. And Zara is there with her terminally ill mother. So it's a retreat center for people with illness stuff. They meet, but Ryan keeps from Zara the fact that he has money and that he's sick. He just lets her think that he's there for similar reason to what she is, just for somebody else. But when Zara's mom needs emergency care and Ryan has her flown back to Boston in a chartered plane, all that comes out. And so that's a really sweet story, and first in a new series by Meghann Whistler, and I am looking forward to the rest of it.
Yeah, it's a great one.
Yeah.
It's on my TBR. This is about the third time I've heard about this book. So it's
I have
it'll get near the
mentioned it
top.
before,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think it's going to be a really good series. And we've all not Elizabeth. Some of the rest of us have said, thumbs down to Billionaire books. And I'm rephrasing that completely because of you. But also this one of Meghann's, I thought it was just really well done, and the story hit all the points as it should. I really enjoyed it a lot.
So when are we doing a Billionaire episode?
We should do a Billionaire episode.
I've been actually hoarding Billionaire books because if I read them too early, I can never remember the story. So I sat sit on Billionaire books thinking we're going to do an episode eventually. So if I just sit them all over there in the corner and then have a Billionaire binge.
You're putting billionaires in the corner?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Excellent. No, I made
probably bribing each other to get out of the corner now.
Yes.
Exactly.
Flashing their money around.
That's right. What's your first one, Narelle?
My first one is a book that's been mentioned, but hasn't really been talked about by us on the podcast. One of our guests has mentioned it before, is Autumn by the Sea by Melissa Tagg. So this one had been one sitting in my TBR for a while that needed to get pushed up to the top. And I had a great excuse because this one's set in Maine. So it's a really interesting story. So it's CCR, but it has a mystery subplot. But the mystery subplot evolves into a series mystery, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Yes. So, and I really like series mysteries that carry over more than one book. So that's a big selling point for me.
I find that interesting because you've said before that you don't always read books in order.
I do if they're mysteries.
That will be a little tricky with the mystery.
Right,
Anyway.
right.
Oh no, I will read. If I know for sure that they're interconnected and I'm going to miss something if I read out of order, then I will read in order.
All right.
But
go ahead.
Yeah. But if it's like a series, and a lot of the trad books, you'll see that they're all set in a location, but sometimes it's not even the same characters or any connections, then those books you can read out of order.
Oh, for sure.
Or skip or jump between tropes that you like or don't like. So it does depend. So anyway, so getting back to Autumn by the Sea, the story setup starts in Chicago. And so Sydney was in the foster care system and she really doesn't know a lot about her birth family. And she works in a restaurant and she has her brother. So she calls him her brother, but he's not biologically her brother, who she met in the foster care system, who's always in and out of trouble. And so she's trying to help him. She gave up college actually to look after him as well. He's a bit younger than her. And so she's been working at a restaurant, just living a life. And this strange guy is just watching her at work. And she's like, oh no, not another creeper. And then he follows her home and she's completely freaked out by this guy. And it turns out that he's a private investigator. And his client, her name's Maggie, and she owns a blueberry farm right on the seaside. So literally the farm is on the sand, right next to the sand in Maine. And she's looking for her granddaughter and has reason to believe that Sydney might be her granddaughter as well. But the catch with all this, I mean, and in a story, if you go back 30 or 40 years, it was you didn't have DNA testing. So that type of mystery plays out differently. But what was clever about this story is that Maggie had adopted all her children. So she's not actually blood related to the granddaughter she's looking for.
Okay.
And the mother has passed away. So there's no way of doing a direct DNA match to the mother. And Sydney has a photograph that suggests that she has some kind of connection to Muir Harbour, which is the setting in Maine where the book is. So the private investigator convinces Sydney to actually jump on a plane with him and go to Maine and stay with the grandmother. And so there's
danger,
right?
Yeah, I know. But it's fascinating because she's not the first person to have stayed there who might be the granddaughter. There's been other candidates who've been ruled out, and then there's three of the adopted children that are there, and one of them is the hero. And the meet cute that relates to a bathroom between, what was his name again? I can't even remember. I think, Neil, his name is. He's Scottish. So he's got a Scottish accent. He's originally from Scotland. There's a meet cute between Neil and Sydney that relates to a bathroom that is absolutely hilarious. Like, laugh out loud, tears rolling down my face, hilarious. I could not stop laughing. And that distracted me for a little bit as I went through the meet cute. But anyway, this story was so much fun. And Neil and Sydney, as you can imagine, there's all this angst because is she really related? Is she there to scam them? Like, because they had someone in the past that had been there to try and see if there was money to be had from the estate and all sorts of different things. So a whole lot of stuff unfolds. But what I really liked about it was the ending was not predictable. And it rolled into a bigger mystery. And I thought that was super fun. And I just love the setting on the beach. The whole Maine setting was just such a big character in the book as well. So that's why this one hit my list. But it's definitely one to read. And the second one isn't on pre-order yet, which was very disappointing because I went straight to Amazon to see if I could find it. So Melissa Tagg, I hope you've got book 2 coming soon because I'm really looking forward to reading it.
It's not weird that she ends up with her uncle effectively. Because like if she's the granddaughter and he's an adopted kid, I mean, I get that they're all adopted, so it's not blood, but
and they don't know each other.
He would still be her uncle.
Well, it depends on how the story plays out, doesn't it? So, I mean, he could and he couldn't, but no one's related to each other. The thing is, no one's blood related. And there's a trick with that. So he's actually technically not legally adopted at the beginning of the book. That's another angst story because he was from Scotland. Okay. So Maggie basically had a very big heart. You take in all these strays. Yes. So even though there's the two sisters as well, that
I would have some issues with the story, but I love the cover of it. I have almost bought it so many times just because of the cover, because the cover is stunning. So
it is. And Melissa makes a good story.
Yeah. Yeah. Now you should buy it. And I mean, they're not blood related. So I
have such weird things about adoption in stories that I have hesitated with that one and several others that everybody raves about, because I'm just not sure with my own personal issues if I could handle them. So
that's fair.
Yeah. I think you'd be okay with this one because she's an adult, an independent adult.
Sure.
And if the question of is she or isn't she, the world is not going to end if one or the other happens. Like, it's not like she's going to slit her wrists if she's not fine. Like, you know what I mean? And there's not going to be something bad that's going to happen. It's part of it's the mystery subplot, but the main story is the romance.
Okay, cool.
So the romance between Neil and Sydney is the main driver of the story. And he has his own issues from his own childhood. So they both have they both had a difficult family situation or whatever that they've gone through, and that has created issues in terms of trust and different things. But you need to read it for the meet cute in the bathroom.
Okay. Meet cute in the bathroom.
Even if you stop.
It's probably in the look inside.
Right, yeah. I'll see.
Don't know if it is actually. It might not be.
Might go skim.
No. It's
sneaky.
There's a little bit of time. There's a little bit of time before they get to... It's a couple of chapters in before they're in Maine. Now you're really testing my memory. Because this is not the most recent book I've read. It may not be in the look inside, but as I said, even if you stop reading there, the bathroom scene is hilarious.
Makes it all worthwhile. All right, there.
All right, there.
All right, so my first book is actually also in Maine. 2 of my 3 are in Maine, because apparently Maine and New York City are the only New England ones that, because I also was not going to do the Courtney Walsh books, because I feel like we've talked about her Nantucket books a lot. So, so On a Summer Tide by Suzanne Woods Fisher. This, I think, was a recommendation in that group that you asked in, Valerie. Because I think of Suzanne Woods Fisher as an Amish author. And this is not Amish. So FYI, she does also have some contemporary. I would say, though, that this is much more women's fiction than romance per se. There are marginal romantic elements to it. And I think if you were to read the whole series, that the 3 daughters would all end up happy in a relationship at the end of the whole series. But even at the end of this first book, nobody is happy in a relationship. There is a beginning hint of a relationship. So I was a little, I felt a little let down. It was a fabulous story, but I was like, romance. And it's like,
where is it?
Women's fiction ending. And it's so very satisfying women's fiction ending. And if I thought that going through, as opposed to like, bring on the kissing, which I like, where's the kissing?
Is this the series with the ice cream cone on the cover?
It's the Three Sisters Island.
Or is it a different one? I know she has one.
Yeah, no, it's not the ice cream cone one.
Okay.
It's an island off the coast of Maine that the father sells their childhood home and buys this camp where he met their mother, but it ends up coming with like 51% of the island as well. And so the natives of the island, they're not natives, the people who live there, of the island are like, who's this outsider coming in and taking over our island? How dare you, kind of thing. So you've got, fish out of water for sure going on there. The main daughter in this book is the sort of career focused. she's a single mom, and I can't remember if she's divorced or just never, I don't even remember why she's a single mom. She's a single mom. And it's good. There's a lot of, all of the daughters are like wrestling with being sort of figuring out life now that their mom has passed away and where they are and who they are. And so again, very women's fiction-y, really well written, really good story. Not so much romance. Maybe if you get to the end of the series, you get all these HEAs, but quirky little fun main characters. Like you think of the sort of stoic and stalwart New Englander, short on words, you know, and you get that sort of caricature of the Mainer, along with some fun, like city people moving to an island where there's no Wi-Fi anywhere. Everything has to be brought over from the island closest or the mainland. Like they have nothing that's actually there. So cute story set in Maine. Not as many kisses as I wanted.
That's fair.
All right, Valerie, you got another one?
Sure.
I'm gonna have time for 2 each because we're talking today.
Debating whether to go for my main story or not. I think I won't because we've covered Maine. I'm going to go with Merrillee Whren. She's one of her inspi romance authors, and she has a series that quite a few of the books are set in Massachusetts. And A Place to Call Home is one that stood out to me, and I have read this whole series, but it's been a few years.
Yeah.
Bert was falsely accused of murdering his wife and in jail for a certain amount of time until it was proven, I can't remember how, that it was not him. So he's a little on the bitter side as he comes out of prison at the beginning of the story. And he's bent on 2 things: finding out who did it and getting justice that way, and then regaining custody of his 2 children who his dead wife's parents have been taking care of while he's in jail. So that's Kurt. And he's hired a private investigator for that. So meanwhile, he's working as a restoration contractor at Molly's Inn. Of course, she's not so sure about hiring an ex-con, as we would all be nervous about, I'm sure. So neither of them, he has definitely no plans to fall in love. I mean, look how that ended. And she also has no plans to do that, which of course is usually or very often the case in a romance novel. So nobody's going to fall in love here. Oh, wait, yes, I am. So the whole series is pretty good. And A Place to Call Home, Merrillee kind of takes you through that whole resolution with Kurt as he begins to find hope again in a future, and not just meaning romantically, but you know, getting rid of the baggage of his past. So
that sounds fun. Yeah. That's her Front Porch Promises series, is that?
Yes,
I believe they've all got really cool porch pictures on the covers.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
That's the series.
Those. Cool. Narelle.
Well, if I talk really quickly about number 2, can I also have a number 3, please?
We'll talk.
We'll have to see.
All right. Okay. All right. I'm going to talk very quickly because I cannot not talk about this one, about the Breakup Project by Carolyn Miller. So this is partly set in Toronto, partly set in Boston. We have done a spotlight on the Breakup Project, and I'd also talked about it in previous episodes. So I'm not going to go into the story itself. You can go back into our archives and go hunting for them. But what I really love, the reason this one hit my list is I just love the Boston setting in the book. So it's a long distance romance. Bree's in Toronto. Mike is a hockey player, plays for the hockey team based in Boston. And so she visits him in Boston. And I just loved that part of the book where you actually get to see through the eyes of Bree, get to explore Boston. And that to me can be really fun. And that was one of the things I look for in terms of the regional settings, is a new character coming in who's not familiar with the setting and getting to actually see Boston and Massachusetts through their eyes. So that was my second one. Can I squeeze a third in as well?
We'll see. I'm going to do my second one first. And then if we have time,
Yes.
we'll go for a third.
How about my fifth one?
No. No.
Okay, go.
All right, so my second one, and I'll try to talk fast, because I also have a third that I want to mention if we can.
We are mentioning it.
Love, Lace, and Minor Alterations by V. Joy Palmer, and it's actually in New Hampshire. Now, I will say it could be anywhere. There is nothing specifically New Hampshire-y about it. So, but she makes a point of it being in New Hampshire, so it qualifies, but you don't really get a feel for New Hampshire from reading it. But it was really kind of fun. Izzy is a bridal consultant at a bridal dress shop, and Miles is hired to do marketing for the shop. And he has these grand ideas that Izzy's aunt owned the shop, but ends up selling it to someone else. But because it's Izzy's aunt's shop, Izzy kind of doesn't like the fact that Miles is like announcing these sales and she hasn't been informed or consulted about them, because this is her aunt's shop and she should know these things, and how dare she not be included. It's definitely sort of, I hate to call it hate to friends to love, but it's because they don't hate each other. They just rub each other the wrong way. You know what I mean? They're oil and vinegar, basically. Oil and water, not oil and vinegar. Oil and water. And so, yeah, but it's the end was really, really satisfying, because I feel like both characters realized the places where they were just being stupid, and actually did more than pay lip service to it, actually sought change. You know, they actually, and they talked and that kind of, you know, I mean, they actually had to realize, and some pretty big stuff, and some big, it had a good faith element that was part of the realizations of where they were going wrong. So I appreciated the fact that there was actual change in the characters, and it was spiritual based changed, as opposed to, I want this person in my life, so I guess I have to change, kind of thing.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Valerie, you have a third talk fast. No, maybe. Did we leave
What?
Valerie? No
Nope.
third?
Oh.
No. All right, Narelle, really fast.
Oh, okay. So I'm going to very quickly talk about the New York City book I mentioned earlier, because we can't just leave people hanging. So the book that it's actually it's almost a contemporary fiction with rom-com elements,
Okay.
as opposed to romantic elements. And it's I Always Cry at Weddings by Sarah Goff. So this is an older one, but I really enjoyed this story. And the reason I brought it up in this episode is that New York City really is a character in the book.
Oh, nice.
So Ava basically has this perfect New York City life. She's a socialite. She's about to marry this amazing guy. She adores her mother-in-law, which you would think would be a winner, because not everyone adores their mother-in-law. And she ends up basically calling off the wedding, and a whole lot of stuff happens. So it doesn't have that traditional romance trajectory with a happily ever after, but she really deals with what happens when she's made this decision and her life has gone in a completely different direction to what she thought. And we really see the good, the bad, and the ugly of New York City. And I found it a fascinating read. And most of the characters in this one aren't Christian. So a lot of people will complain that with CCR often that all the characters are Christian. It's kind of like we're sitting in the Christian bubble and blah, blah, blah. This one, you'll be complaining probably that not enough characters are Christian, if that makes sense. And you really and because of that, there are probably conservative readers may want to give this one a miss, because there'll be things that happen. There'll be stuff happening that is outside of what you probably normally expect to see in a CCR. But on the other hand, if you're a
Very
reader
tactful.
looking for something different that's challenging and will really push you to think about social justice issues and things like that, then this is a good one to read. And it's a fun story, and I really enjoyed it. And I have not read this book for probably 7 years, but I still remember it. So a book that I can remember 7 years later, it was the first one I thought of for New York City. So it's stuck in my mind as a good one.
Cool. All right, so super fast, I'm going to just give an honorable mention nod, and then we'll get Valerie's super fast. The Moosecreek series by Jan Elder. You have to read. It's set in Maine with mooses. There are moose in the town.
Matilda the moose.
Matilda the moose. And you want to read all three, because what Jan did is the relationship, you don't get the final HEA till the end of the third book. So their relationship does span all three books. Each one has a fairly satisfying happy for now. But if you want that super happy at the end, you got to read all three. And it is a little quirky because the heroine is actually a pastor. So I know for some folks, they might struggle a little there. So fair warning, it does have a female pastor. But it's a really fun series, and the town, very Maine, like it couldn't be set anywhere else. It is very Maine.
As I recall, because this is somewhere on my list too, the townspeople also struggled with the fact that they had called a female pastor. So lest you think that you're the only one when you're reading it and everybody else thinks it's normal, Jan definitely goes there.
Yeah, she does. She does for sure. All right, Valerie, what's yours?
I'm just going to give an honorable mention to Ruth Logan Herne's Wishing Bridge series, set in upstate New York.
Is it swishing?
Wishing Bridge.
Wishing.
Yes.
Wishing, as in, what do you wish about? Welcome to Wishing Bridge is the first one. It's about, the series is about 3 girls who are in foster care together. And Kelsey finds herself giving birth in a fire station in Wishing Bridge near Rochester after being stranded by a winter storm.
Oh, fun.
She drives off the road by accident, obviously, I guess. Police officer Hale rescues her. Kelsey had reason to believe her mom had been from Wishing Bridge, and she had no intention of actually stopping there. She was just going to carry on by. She was planning to give her baby up for adoption. But here she is, like a month early, giving birth in this fire station, and the elderly couple who takes her in, it's a whole very warm, small town feeling. And Ruth Logan Herne is very good at characterization. Yes. And if you're looking for a town you can cozy up in for a while, Wishing Bridge is your place.
Cool. Yes. All right. Well, let us know if you've read any of these, or if you have a recommendation for a New England-based book. We know we left out a whole bunch of New York City books, so we acknowledge that for sure.
Also Maine and New Hampshire.
Yeah. And Nantucket, like all of Courtney Walsh has some fabulous books set in Nantucket that we've talked about multiple times. So we know we missed some for sure. But we'd love to hear what you would recommend. And other people might enjoy seeing what you recommend as well. So leave us a comment. Thank you for joining us. If you are watching on YouTube, don't forget subscribe and notification bell so you never miss an episode. And you can find more information about the podcast at at inspyromance.com/storychats. And we will look forward to seeing you next week. In the meantime, don't forget to fall in love with a good book. Bye.
Bye.
Goodbye, everyone.